ICE agents arrest them and initiate new deportation proceedings under this expedited removal process, which gives immigrants far fewer rights and due process than they would otherwise have in that court hearing. And so we hear so much about Stephen Miller talking about we're getting all these murderers and child rapists and deporting them, and we're going to focus on convicted criminals who shouldn't be here, who are terrorizing our cities. Well, these people are the exact opposite. They're the ones who are doing it right. And of course, it creates perverse incentives because the ones who are doing things the right way should not be the ones
Right.
who ultimately get snookered and deported. That, of course, incentivizes people not to do it the right way, to go further underground, not to get work visas, not to pay taxes, and generally makes all of us less safe.
There's this whole genre of Trump supporters who are, for example, who own construction companies that are watching these ICE raids take place where they just basically round up everybody who works there. And these are not violent, hardened criminals, the ones who Trump during the campaign promised to deport. These are regular, hardworking folks who are coming here and making sure that that our economy actually functions. And so can I have your reaction to these folks who thought they were voting for one thing and are getting something completely different now that Trump's actually in office?
Well, I mean, that's true in immigration. It's true across the board. Trump lies, lies, lies. We've seen that. We've known that for a long time. And essentially, everything that he promised was all BS. He's doing, in many respects, the exact opposite, including in terms of his immigration policy. This is driven by a new directive. There's been reporting on this that Stephen Miller and Donald Trump, and they're reshuffling the heads of some of the immigration agencies to make 3,000 arrests per day, which more than triples the generally the highest numbers that you see. And so this is now a numbers game for them. They're not focused on the bad ones. They're just focused on getting as many as they can. Even people who are doing things the right way, who may very well have legitimate asylum claims and fear persecution if they go home. And they may stay, they may not legally, but these people often have work visas, they have families, they have lives, and they're literally being grabbed as they walk out of a courtroom and detained, and in some cases, potentially removed from the country in less than a week.
Right. Well, one other promise that Donald Trump made during the campaign was this idea that he was going to lower costs for everybody. And of course, he's engaged in this practice where, obviously costs are going up as the result of his misguided trade war, but we're also seeing deep cuts to programs that Americans rely on that are inevitably going to make life more expensive for those folks, including Medicaid cuts and food assistance cuts. Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa was asked today about those deep cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, and the impact that's going to have. Specifically, the fact that when this happens, there are folks in this country who are going to die as the result of that. Here's her response.
So people are not. Well, we all are going to die.
So Joni Ernst saying, we're all going to die. Can I get your reaction to that? Is that what they teach? Is that what they teach you guys at politics school? When somebody has concerns about deep cuts to Medicaid and food assistance, that your response should be to shrug it off and just say that everybody's going to die anyway?
That should be the Republican mantra. That's effectively what they believe. They don't think that our safety net programs are worthwhile. They think tax cuts for billionaires are far more important than making sure children can eat. That's where their priorities lie. That's what this reconciliation bill did. And in combination, as you point out, with the tariff tax, which is just going to increase prices, it's going to increase inflation, and so many more millions of Americans not getting healthcare, not getting food assistance, it is going to result in people dying because of Republican policies. And you see how much they care from Joni Ernst, which is not at all,
Right.
because we're all going to die. So who cares if you die sooner rather than later? You aren't worthy of being in this country and seeking the American dream. And that, in combination with this immigration policy, which is basically just a xenophobic attack on foreigners, that's who the Republican Party is today. It is people who no longer believe that the American dream exists, no longer believe that we are a country of immigrants where people come for freedom, for liberty, to pursue the American dream. That's not what they're looking for. They are just looking to give the haves even more and to try to go back to the 1950s in where the world of white supremacy. And that's the Republican Party. What she just said encapsulates how the Republican Party acts. She just said it out loud. Most of them don't, but their actions fully support what she just said.
There was another provision in this bill that would actually limit the court's ability to enforce contempt proceedings or contempt charges against those who defy court rulings. And obviously, we have seen the Trump administration make a traffic completely in defying what the court actually rules. We saw that all the way with that unanimous ruling about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And we've had numerous other instances where the courts have ruled something, the Trump administration decides not to comply, and then we have to engage in this whole potential contempt process as the result of that. And so this would basically be taking the court's one recourse from the Trump administration away. Can I have your reaction to the fact that really the Republican Party more broadly is attempting to neuter every branch of government, whether it's the judicial branch by virtue of this provision or the legislative branch? I mean, they're self-neutering in a way, but even with these tariffs, I mean, the Trump administration is trying to unilaterally impose these tariffs even after we're getting rulings from the International Trade Court saying that that's illegal, but it's not like the Republicans in Congress are going to do anything to protect their own autonomy. So in a way, the only branch that the Trump administration views as legitimate is the executive branch, and they're proving it with actions like this.
Brian, you hit the nail on the head, and this is actually what I said during our Judiciary Committee markup on this particular bill. The Republicans in Congress have handed over all of their own independent authority as a separate and equal branch of government with the power of the purse and with oversight responsibilities to ensure that appropriations that Congress has passed are adhered to and followed by the executive branch, as just one example. So they come to Washington every week just to give their own power to Donald Trump. But that's not enough for them. It's not enough for them to just concede all of their power to their orange master. No, they need to go after the courts as well, because the courts are the third independent branch of government, separate and equal branch. And the courts cannot be swayed by Donald Trump's threats in the same way because these judges have life tenure. They don't have an election coming up. And so in order to help Donald Trump implement and execute his lawlessness, the Republicans in Congress snuck in a provision in this reconciliation bill that makes it much harder for a court to hold a party in contempt. And contempt is the way that courts enforce their orders. If they are not adhered to, if they're defied, as you pointed out, Donald Trump and his administration have been doing, then a court can escalate their enforcement of it through contempt proceedings all the way up to and including potential jail time. Well, in order to neuter, as you say, the authority of the courts to enforce their orders, the Republicans put a provision in that makes it harder for courts to enforce their orders, and therefore makes it easier for Donald Trump to continue his lawlessness. They are facilitating, aiding and abetting, and they are accomplices to Donald Trump's complete lawlessness.
One more question here on judges, and that is that we're even seeing judges who Trump himself appointed rule against this administration. We're seeing Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump himself appointed, these far-right Supreme Court justices, even recognizing that Trump is often going too far and acting in a manner that's so extrajudicial, so illegal, so unconstitutional that they have to push back on it. And that's obviously garnering a lot of ill will and pushback from the administration itself. And so And so there is this push now that it seems that even, that the only judges who Trump is going to bother appointing are ones who are so aggressively unqualified